9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, my fellow from Low Sovereign Thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful realms of planet Earth. Today's date is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026's episode. Good grief, sorry about that. 1933. 2026 dollar collapse, how Trump's arrogance is breaking the global financial system. Before I proceed, you can find me on multiple social media sites and podcast channels. Just type in Looky Luck number 3, Looky Luck Roman number 3 with 3 eyes, or Looky Luck Roman number 3 podcast. In addition, if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me. If you're not doing it, go to paypal.me or cash.app/Looky Luck number 3. Oh, yeah, so, just observe responsibly as usual. And I'm just, this dawns on me, people are still taking the bait, hearing double speak, baseless viewpoints and all that good stuff. But, you know, I don't wig out. I'm not a big news junkie, but I like to examine things thoroughly without stressing. That's why I tell all my listeners out here, please observe responsibly. Well, enough of that. I want to be reading here from 21stcenturywire.com. This one came out today. It's under Global Affairs. 2026 dollar collapse, how Trump's arrogance is breaking the global system. Financial system. I said banking system on that one, but that's fair enough. I could take care of that. And this is by Freddie Poton. The world is quietly preparing for a future Washington refuses to acknowledge what is unfolding now is not a sudden crisis nor a market accident, but the delayed build for years of political arrogance and monetary abuse. The dollar's reckoning did not begin in 2025 or 2026. It began the moment the United States discovered it could escape accountability by manufacturing money and that no one could stop it. That is logical, has merit to it, so I'll continue on. In 2008, the Federal Reserve lit the fuse, flooding the system with liquidity to rescue a financial order that had collapsed under its own corruption. The world was told this was an emergency measure, a one-off intervention, a necessary evil. It was none of those things. It established a precedent that every government, investor, and central bank understood instinctively. When the system breaks, the dollar is debased so the architects of the future can walk away intact. In 2020, that lesson hardened into doctrine. Trillions were conjured again, not merely to stabilize markets, but to shut down the economy and erase the political costs. That was the confirmation moment. The moment it became clear that when America is under pressure, the dollar is expendable. Allies will be made to absorb the inflation. Rivals will be disciplined with sanctions. The United States will protect itself first, always. That retaliation is not going global. Today, U.S. investment banks are forced to recognize that the shift towards a multipolar world is raising questions about the dollar's status. The dollar's dominance was never just about size or strength. It was about restraint, about predictability, about the implicit promise that the United States would behave as a steward, not a bully. That promise is broken, and once broken, it cannot be repaired with speeches in Davos or reassurances about Treasury auctions. At Davos, the fracture was laid bare. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent openly mocked European concerns about dumping U.S. treasuries. Denmark's holdings, he said, were irrelevant. European pension funds pulling back. Nothing to worry about, he spoke with the arrogance of a man who believes demand for American debt is a law of nature rather than a choice. That arrogance is not incidental. It is a disease. And has a good point there. There's a video on here. You could just check it out for yourselves. But one thing I know for sure, folks, is just really insane with the central banking, private banking system, the Federal Reserve, the creature from Jekyll Island. We can go on. It's been happening everywhere. So I'll continue on. Denmark is not irrelevant. Europe is not bluffing. Mockery or hubris may fill the halls of Washington, but beyond its borders, the rules have changed and the dollar is no longer untouchable. Or in other words, I call it the Federal Reserve note. Europe's awakening. You are funding your own punishment. For years, Europe played along. It funded U.S. deficits, parked pension savings and treasuries, absorbed Washington's monetary excesses while pretending the alliance was symmetrical. That illusion is collapsing fast. Europe's largest pension fund cuts its U.S. government debt exposure by 10 billion euro dollars in a single year. The reasons were blunt: poor U.S. fiscal discipline, a weakening dollar, and rising macroeconomic risk driven by political instability in Washington. In private, the fear is more explicit. Trump is back, and no one in Europe trusts restraint to survive his return. Why should they? The first Trump administration weaponized tariffs against allies as casually as against adversaries. The second has made clear it intends to go further. Sanctions, tariffs, threats, all deployed without distinction between friend and foe. From Europe's perspective, buying U.S. bonds now looks less like prudent reserve management and more like financing your own subjugation. You lend money, Washington uses that leverage against you. Your savings become a hostage to American politics. That realization changes behavior, not rhetorically, mechanically. Capital flows adjust. Treasuries are sold or allowed to mature. Gold is repatriated. Counterparty risk, a phrase once confined to textbooks, becomes policy. In 2025, it was the first time in almost 30 years that the central banks around the globe were holding more gold than U.S. treasuries. This marks a significant change in the management of global reserves, influenced by risk associated with sanctions, worries about debt, and the pursuit of diversification. And you can really add the fiat currency, or a petrodollar didn't help. It should have always been kept in the gold standard. Even Roger Stone renounced that decision from his good friend Richard Nixon. I'll be fair, you like Roger Stone or not, but he was highly critical of it. So I'll continue on. Germany's debate over its gold reserves is not paranoia. It's a president-driven realism. Russia assets were frozen. Venezuelan gold was seized. If it can happen to them, it can happen to anyone. Low probability is not zero probability. And sovereign risk management is about survival, not sentiment. Europe is late to this awakening, but it no longer asleep. BRICS and the treasury of illusion. If Europe retreats is cautious, BRICS retreat is strategic. Russia is already gone. China has been reducing treasury exposure almost continuously for years. Brazil has joined the rotation, but the revealing shift is India. Washington supposed last bridge inside BRICS. In October 2025, the BRICS nations cut their investments in U.S. Treasury securities by almost $29 billion, furthering the moment toward de-dollarization and diversifying their reserves. India's holding of long-term U.S. bonds have fallen from roughly $230 billion to about $174 billion in just 2 years. This is not portfolio noise. It is deliberate, as it's driven by two risks. India understands all too well dollar debasement and sanctions. India uniquely exposed Russian oil accounts for roughly 36% of its total supply, far more than China. That alone places New Delhi squarely in the crosshairs of Washington's sanctions regime. Trump has already imposed a 25% tariff. He has openly threatened more secondary sanctions punitive escalation, even asset freezes. Is freezing Indian bond holdings unthinkable? Only if you believe the rules still exist. Russia thought they did it too. India is acting accordingly. Treasuries are being dumped or allowed to roll off. Reserves are growing anyway because gold is replacing paper. Last year, India's reserve rose by a net $14 billion despite treasury sell-offs entirely due to gold accumulation. This is not an ideological anti-Americanism, it's survival math. Gold does not lecture you. Gold does not sanction you. Gold does not get frozen in a foreign vault when geopolitics shift. It simply exists outside the dollar system, outside of Washington's jurisdiction. This is why gold has now overtaken U.S. Treasuries as the largest component of global central bank reserves, roughly $5 trillion in gold versus $3.9 trillion in treasuries. That crossover is not symbolic. It is seismic. The message from BRICS is ambiguous. The era of treating U.S. debt as a risk-free asset is over. The weak dollar reality America refuses to face. By 2026, the dollar declines is no longer deniable. The index has fallen to a multi-year lows. Another 1.5% slide this month alone. The narrative spun by mainstream media is carefully anesthetized. Policy uncertainty, volatility, rebalancing. But the lived reality is harsher. Ask a foreign investor who bought U.S. equities. The S&P is up 1.3% this year. The dollar is down 1.5%. These FX effects can erode real returns for international buyers. A dynamic reflected in broader market reporting showing dollars weakness, eating into foreign purchases. In real items, they lost money. This is not growth. It is a currency illusion. This is why treasuries have become a hot potato. You are not just fighting inflation. You are fighting currency collapse. And hedging the dollar costs 2 to 3% annually, more than the yield itself. The math is broken. This is where voices like Peter Schiff enter, dismissed by polite finance, but increasingly vindicated by events. Schiff's warning of a 2026 crisis worse than 2008 is not about panic. It's about structure. The U.S. cannot service its debt honestly. Inflation is not a policy failure. It is the exit strategy. Inflate away obligation, sacrifice savers, hope confidence lingers just long enough. Crypto was supposed to be the refuge, but when the liquidity dries up, speculative assets bleed first. Bitcoin does not behave like gold in crisis. It behaves like leverage. Schiff's argument, controversial, even more uncomfortable, is that crypto will not save Americans from the dollar collapse. It will amplify the pain. Meanwhile, Washington threatens bond dumpers as if intimidation can force confidence, as if buyers can simply step away. Bond issuances is a long game, but buyers have options and they are exercising them. Korea, empire, and the cost of bullying the world. The South Korea episode strips away any remaining pretense that it is about economics rather than power. Trump's decision to reimpose tariffs, raising from 15 to 25% on autos and pharmaceuticals, is framed as enforcement. In reality, it is coercion. Hundreds of billions in promised Korean investment have not yet cleared legislation. Trump grows impatient. Markets must be punished. The consequences are immediate. Automaker stocks fall. The one KRW trembles. A currency already recovering from a 17-year low is pushed back toward the edge. Korea's auto sector is 27% of exports to the U.S. It is directly threatened by Trump's new tariffs, 25%. Nearly half of the Korean car exports go to American consumers. There is no counter tariff lever, no retaliation that doesn't self-harm. Korea is trapped. Ratify the deal and hollow out the domestic industry. Resist and face market destabilization. Chips are spared for now because the U.S. still needs Korean supply, but once production migrates, the knife comes out again. This is not alliance management. It is imperial extraction. And Korea, like others, is learning the lesson. When you cannot diversify trade, you diversify reserves. Since October 2025, the Bank of Korea has been considering gold purchases for the first time since 2013. They just hold over 100 tons negligible in a crisis. That will change because holding hundreds of billions in U.S. assets may deliver zero real return or be weaponized outright is not prudence, it is negligence. To summarize America's attitude problem, this is not the world turning against America, it's the world reacting to America. An attitude problem has metastasized into a systemic risk, mockery in Davos, threats instead of diplomacy, sanctions as reflex, trade wars without strategy, monetary debasement without accountability, the assumption that everyone will keep buying U.S. debt because they always have. They won't. The exodus from treasuries is not emotional, it is rational. It is slow, deliberate, and accelerating. And the more Washington lashes out, the faster it will go. If Americans want to understand what's coming in 2026, they should stop listening to those telling them everything is fine and start asking the world is quietly preparing for the future where the dollar no longer rules unchallenged, because once trust is gone, no amount of power can print it back. Got some great points there. Well, I can tell you this, folks. That's why the fiat currency system is dangerous. That's one of the biggest mistakes, nefarious moves you can say, that Richard Nixon has done under the Nixon administration. But we all know he was only a patsy anyway. It's like all presidents, including Trump, Obama, Biden, etc. This is what you get when you have the Rothschilds try to rule all of us. They're the ones who are trying to control the finances. It is why I always recommend people learn to decentralize and even go to your local governments and state governments. And now, I think it's 16, 17 states now are saying that they can utilize gold and silver as transactions. And that's fantastic. Doesn't matter if you like these people or not. If they vote on this and the governor signs it, thank them in good faith, because we can have our differences, but we have something in common. We need to stand side by side. And based on this, the Federal Reserve note, because the truth of the matter is gold and silver coins is real sound money under our U.S. Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 and Article 1, Section 10. Read it for yourselves, my fellow Americans. And even Trump, he has bad advisors too. So there's some people I'm not too fond of, right? So that's why it doesn't matter who you support. When you vote, you watch them all. Don't just say, oh, they do nothing wrong. I see people want to idolize these political figureheads, and it's comical. They're not our lords and saviors. They're not celebrities. They're servants. And the president, like a la Donald Trump, is an elected ambassador that was chose by the states, electoral college. All you centralized hacks don't like it? Leave. I don't care. But we got to be critical, have merit, don't be a parrot. But one thing we know for sure on this is going to get pretty ugly. It's going to be pretty rough. So all you folks out there, please prepare yourselves. And if you want to study a little history, look up the fall of the Reichsmark from 1922 to 1929, how their economy crumbled. And that's from all the bankers out there, okay? They love controlling people. And don't be surprised, many of those are infiltrated in the BRICS cause. They'll always question everything, observe responsibly. And folks, prepare yourselves the best you can by starting to decentralize yourself. Then you can share that with your community and let the chips fall. Well, that will be it. Thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me. I will leave the footnote of this article so you can read it for yourselves. If you want to donate, go to PayPal.me or cash.app/look3. If you want to support 21st Century Wire, do so. Donate, subscribe. Plus, always observe responsibly. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.